Chapter number 18, topic Foreign Trade Policy. Foreign trade policy in India. So, first of all, about this foreign trade policy, I deal with introduction, and in this also discuss the relevance for the exam. And then what is FTP? History and background briefly. History and background briefly. Next, contents. So, first of all, foreign trade policy. You can say foreign trade is a lifeline to the economic growth, because through foreign trade we can produce. If you have foreign trade, if you are able to export, we can produce more economic activity. Our unutilized capacities can be utilized if we can produce more and if we can sell more. Secondly, we get forex, foreign currency. Forex, foreign exchange is very essential for any country. So, through exports we will get what you can say foreign currency. But at the same time, to meet the growing demands and wants of the people of any country, they should have access to variety of goods and services. So, variety of goods and services, maybe certain things are not available in our country and they are available in other countries, and better we import and we enjoy using it. So, import and export are equally important, but their regulation is equally important. They have to be monitored, they have to be regulated, and they have to be facilitated. Sometimes they have to be prevented or even prohibited, because you cannot import each and everything you like. It should not be. So, there is a case of prohibition, and there may be certain cases in which certain restrictions are necessary. Strict control, stringent vigilance is necessary. So, by keeping into account all these things, Government of India thought it fit to have what you can say EXIM policy, export import policy. And that export import policy later on has been renamed as foreign trade policy. So, in the year 2004-2009, it has been renamed as foreign trade policy. Earlier it was EXIM policy. So, there was an act to deal with all these things. So, foreign trade policy means international trade takes place everywhere. In every country is almost involved in foreign trade. Either it imports or exports or both, because no country can live in isolation. So, because globalization is inevitable, global exposure is inevitable, so many goods and services are coming into a country and so many goods and services are going out of country. Whatever you are able to produce with an advantage, you will explore markets outside the country, and whatever you require which is not available in your country, you will look for supplies from other countries. You do import. So, like this, import and export is a very ancient concept. It has been taking place since times immemorial. So, then in the modern society, it's very important to monitor all these things. So, first of its kind, if you can say, foreign trade policy. This foreign trade policy, the concept of foreign trade policy has been there since independence, since 1950 onwards, and it is doing rounds. And before that, let me tell you what is the relevance for the exam, what is the scope of this for your exam. So, for this course, for the first time, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has introduced this for say 10 marks, approximately for 10 marks. So, this is a sequel, you can say it is in continuation of customs. So, do not think that you are doing something foreign, doing something additional. It is a part of customs, you can say. It is like a co-brother of customs. Why this is a co-brother of customs? Because customs deals with imports and exports. But at the same time, for imports and exports, the backup policy framework is there under foreign trade policy, and based on that, imports and exports are there. So, once import is there or export is there, facilitating imports and facilitating exports is the job of customs. So, you can say customs is the front end and foreign trade policy is the back end, and foreign trade policy is under the control of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, whereas customs is under the control of the Ministry of Finance. Customs purely takes it as a matter of tax, as a subject of tax, but Ministry of Commerce and Industry looks at foreign trade as an instrument of growth, as an instrument of employment generation, as an instrument of balanced economic growth. So, naturally, Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Commerce and Industry and Ministry of Finance both act in coordination, and whatever concessions or discounts, whatever exemptions offered by foreign trade policy, they have to be finally sanctioned by the Finance Ministry. So, only the Finance Ministry, only through the machinery of the Finance Ministry notifications are issued. So, coordination is very much necessary. So, in this what we do is, for your syllabus, a very limited portion of foreign trade policy. If you look at the study material released by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, they have given an overview. It is not the foreign trade policy, it is just an overview. That part of foreign trade policy which is directly or very much connected with the customs. To understand the customs better, knowledge of foreign trade policy is desirable, is very much desirable. So, in this topic, so let me tell you, the student is expected to have an overview, a brief idea about what it is and how it works. That's it. It's not for a mastery. You need not master this. You should be in a position to appreciate what it is. So, by the end of this chapter, you should be in a position to understand what is foreign trade policy, how it works, what is its mechanism, authorities, who are the authorities, and what is the purpose it serves, etc., incidental matters. That's it, just an overview only. So, first of all, let us see here foreign trade policy. So, what is foreign trade policy? Foreign trade policy is a set of guidelines or you can say instructions, set of guidelines or instructions in foreign trade. Foreign trade means import export. So, set of guidelines, instructions in foreign trade. And second point is, it is under, there is a specific law, legal provisions, legislations. So, look at legislations. To deal with foreign trade, there are legislations, and one of them, main legislation is Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act. Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act. Development and Regulation Act. 1992. FTDRA. This is briefly known as FTDRA. So, what is the basic object or objects of Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act? Number one is obviously regulation of foreign trade. Number two, facilitating imports. It is not controlling imports, facilitating imports. Whatever imports are necessary, they should be taken care of. Facilitating imports and augmenting exports. Augmenting means increasing, generating and increasing exports. So, with the objective, with this objective that foreign trade has to be regulated, it should be regulated to the desirable results, and it is to facilitate imports and also to augment exports. Okay. And if you look at the history and background, earlier Import and Export Control Act, it was looking at control. Now it is not looking at control, it is facilitating foreign trade. So, improving foreign trade, employment, increasing employment generation. So, there were so many committees formed to look into the foreign trade. So, and finally, they have decided. Earlier, the exim policy was for 2 years. So, afterwards, they made it a policy, what you can say, 5-year policy, 5-year exim policy. And finally, the exim policy name has been changed to Foreign Trade Policy in the year 2004-2009. So, here this act envisages what this does. So, with a lot of research, with a lot of development, and as a result of number of committees which we need not go into details. So, the act finally was made in the year 1992. So, this act aims at. So, this act provides for what are the things that it deals with. This act provides for establishment of office and appointment of Director General Foreign Trade. Director General Foreign Trade. This official is main in charge, because this implementation of the act is in the hands of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So, establishment, office and appointment of Director General Foreign Trade, and prohibition of imports or exports of certain things, it is necessary, and formulating principles for facilitating foreign trade, etc. So, for FTDRA provides for various things, among them appointment of Director General on Foreign Trade. Director General in Foreign Trade will be under the control of Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The office, it will have the regional offices also, head office is in Delhi. Under him there are deputy DGFTs, assistant DGFTs, etc., who will monitor in various places, and the DGFT plays a very, very important role here in formulation of foreign trade policy and in implementation of foreign trade policy to make amendments, etc., etc., etc. So, here under this act, it is section 5. Under section 5 of the FTDRA, under this act, section 5 of this FTDRA, DGFT under the control of the direct control of the Minister of Commerce and Industry announces foreign trade policy. So, this is done for 5 years at a time. So, foreign trade policy is done once in 5 years, just like 5-year plan. This is a 5-year policy, and again this will be undergoing amendments every year, changes in the policy every year by 31st March or in April. Sometimes it may be in April also. The changes will be effected here. Budget is introduced in the month of February, end of February, whereas by the end of March, the foreign trade policy changes will be announced by the government. Whereas budget is announced by Finance Ministry and changes in foreign trade policy are announced by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and under that in particular, to be specific, it is the DGFT office. Okay. So, with the 5-year program and with yearly changes, foreign trade policy will run. So, what is there in the foreign trade policy? What are the contents? So, what are the authorities? So, administration, I have already told you, the administration part will be taken care of by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Who are the authorities? Authorities. Under the Act main, it is Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Under his control, DGFT office, DGFT and regional offices. Under him, there are regional offices, region wise. Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, Region 4, etc. So, here entire foreign trade policy will be running like this, but this ministry acts in coordination with the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Finance, because ultimately all sanctions should go through the Ministry of Finance. Otherwise, there is no use, there is no there is no advantage, there is no use. For example, I will tell you one example. Mr. Kamal Nath, he was Commerce Minister and previous previous government, not this one. When the Congress party came to power and first time Manmohan Singh became Prime Minister of the country, Kamal Nath was Commerce Minister, and he announced exemption to export oriented units from service tax. So, export oriented units were to be exempt from service tax, because already it is there, SEZ units get exemption. Similarly, export oriented units should also get exemption. That was the announcement. So, in foreign trade policy, Commerce Ministry announced it, but the Finance Minister did not concur with. The then Finance Minister was Mr. P. Chidambaram. He did not allow, he did not accept. So, because Finance Ministry did not accept, did not allow, notification was not issued. Because there was no notification, and till now, till today, export oriented units are not getting any benefit of service tax. So, Commerce Ministry proposes many a time, Finance Ministry disposes. So, only when Commerce Ministry and Finance Ministry act in coordination, then everything will be smooth, otherwise there will be rift. I feel personally that in India, the Commerce Ministry and Finance Ministry should be under one and the same person, not two persons. So, two persons are having divergent views on growth and this thing, but anyway, Finance Ministry's outlook is always to look into augmenting or generating revenues, whereas Commerce Ministry, it is industrial promotion, growth, etc., etc. They do look at different angles, from two different angles. Naturally, sometimes they don't agree with each other. It happens. It has been happening. Virtually, it has been happening. So, here like this, so the Ministry of Commerce and Industry should act in coordination with Ministry of Finance, otherwise it's not possible. What are the outside foreign trade policy? Outside the foreign trade policy, what are the authorities? But under foreign trade policy, it is DGFT office, but at the same time, there are other authorities. For example, EOUs, SCZ units, etc. These fall under foreign trade policy only. These are established under foreign trade policy. And who is the authority? The authority here is Development Commissioner. It is Development Commissioner. Just like a Registrar of Companies, Development Commissioner will also look into this, will look into the matters relating to export-oriented unit, SCZ units, etc. Okay? So, other authorities outside this Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So, administrative authorities. Administrative setup, if you look at others, see here, it is the DGFT office which monitors the foreign trade policy, and here CBEC, Central Board of Excise and Customs, and here it is RBI. These three play, and others will also be there, but these three will play very, very vital role. For FTP, what is the role of DGFT? DGFT will formulate principles. He will announce, he will make amendments, he will bring about changes. In a nutshell, DGFT office is the policy maker. Is a policy maker. So, based on the policy, imports and exports will be taking place. Incentives, what incentives that are being given, everything will be taken care of. The policy takes birth here. And what about the role of CBEC? CBEC, Central Board of Excise and Customs, deals with taxation matters. So, here DGFT office has been created by Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act, whereas Central Board of Excise and Customs, this board has been created under Central Boards of Revenue Act 1963. And the purpose of this CBEC, the board, is to look into various administrative matters relating to taxation, to facilitate trade and industry, particularly when the exports are taking place. So, customs department is there, with the, it will guide the customs department to implement the provisions of the law. So he is like a watchdog, and at the same time CBC deals with excise also. Most of the goods are excisable goods which are exported, and obviously excise duty incentives are there. When you export, excise duty incentives are available. So there is a role of excise department also, and as far as services are concerned, service tax department. So excise, customs and service matters will be dealt with here. So one more important area, that is, because this deals with the taxation matters, this office announces incentives, but these incentives are actually allowed by notifications by Ministry of Finance. So notifications by Ministry of Finance, they are on the basis of the recommendation of CBC obviously. So these have to work in coordination. But what is the role of RBI, Reserve Bank of India? So Reserve Bank of India deals with forex matters, all foreign forex matters. Say FEMA, knowledge, say under FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999, there are so many aspects relating to forex. So these forex matters will be taken care of, trade matters are taken care of by RBI. For example, section 7, 8, 9 of 9, of course the 10 authorized person of FEMA. So there are so many provisions under FEMA which deal with the forex matters, like various accounts like EFC, exchange journals, foreign accounts, foreign currency accounts. So forex matters are taken care of, and timing of bringing money, say suppose there is an export. So by what time you have to bring the money, where do you keep the money, whether you can keep in foreign currency or Indian currency, to what extent you can do. All these things are, forex matters are taken care of by RBI under FEMA, and taxation matters are taken care of by CBSE, and of course under Central Excise Act, Customs Act, Finance Act 1994, and DGFT frames policy matters under FTDRA. So these three play a very vital role, and proper coordination is necessary. So the RBI obviously should understand the policies made by the DGFT office, and CBC also has to understand, and DGFT office also should understand the forex matters involved and also the formalities involved in taxation. So all these things, they act in coordination. And then next, what else is there? Next is, how is the foreign trade policy? So what are the contents of foreign trade policy? Next step is look into contents of foreign trade policy. So contents are in three parts. It is in three parts. Very important area to understand. Again, in a triangular fit. One is the policy. Policy guidelines. What is the policy of the government? There is a policy document. Part 1. And next, part 2, procedures. What procedures to be followed? This is part 2. The procedures to be followed in achieving the policy matters. And the third one is classification of goods. So this is classification of goods. So this classification of goods, you can say ITC, this is known as ITC HS classification. This is also on the model of the excise customs classification, ITC HS classification. ITC, the full form of ITC is India Trade Clarification. India Trade Clarification. HS means harmonious system, harmonized system. ITC HS classification. So classification of goods. So policy matters have been decided, policy matters are laid down here, procedures to be followed has been specified in this, and classification. Goods are specified, export goods meant for export and goods meant for import, they are specified, and applicability, nature, everything you will find here under classification. So let's go a little more elaborately on the classification. Just as in customs here, we have two schedules. There are two schedules. What are they? Schedule 1. And Schedule 2. There are two schedules, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. And Schedule 1 deals with imported goods. And the policy relating to imported goods. And Schedule 2 deals with export goods. The policy connected with the export goods. So unlike in customs, if you look at Customs Tariff Act also, it is somewhat similar, but there is a difference. So what is the difference here? For imported goods and exported goods, under customs, the list of export goods is very small, but under ITC HS classification released by DGFT office, the list is very large and very big, because so many things are exported from India and their specification you find here. But under customs, so many goods are exported, but duty is not